honors for campaign and campaign staff. So Duncan Hunter will be pardoned as well. He's one of the president's biggest supporters. He had to resign from Congress because of this. Also, Chris Collins. This was one, I believe this was the first House member to come out in support of then candidate Trump back in 2015. He was a congressman from the state of New York. He also had to resign his seat because he was implicated in insider trading and securities fraud, basically making stock trades based on inside information, and for lying to the FBI. So you're seeing right now these two former congressmen will get pardoned due to the president. We wanted to move on as well to these other two individuals who were caught up in the Russia probe by Robert Mueller, the special counsel who was in charge of leading the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. So George Papadopoulos, that name might sound familiar to a lot of our viewers. He was a low-level foreign policy advisor on the 2016 Trump campaign. He served his time. It wasn't a very it wasn't a very long prison sentence. They got him on lying to the FBI, as well as this individual, Alex van der Zwaan, also for lying to the FBI. This is all in regard to that Russia probe, the Mueller investigation. I just want to read from some of this copy. So Alex van der Zwaan, he was a Dutch lawyer. He was sentenced to 30 days in jail and pled guilty. He pleaded guilty to lying to Mueller's investigators. And remember, both Papadopoulos and van der Zwaan, they were both implicated in meeting with these intermediaries, these foreign intermediaries acting on behalf of Russian intelligence with supposed information on the Clinton campaign, inside dirt on the Clinton campaign. Same with Papadopoulos. So right there, you're seeing these 4 high-level pardons the Trump administration and the president himself is issuing tonight. We did want to go over, though, some of these more interesting commutations, these people who are serving time right now. And that includes, just bear with me here, right here. So the pardon list also includes 4 former U.S. service members who were convicted of killing Iraqi civilians while working as contractors back in 2007. One of them, his name, Nicholas Slatton, he had been sentenced to life in prison after the DOJ had gone to great lengths to prosecute him. He had been a contractor for that controversial company, remember Blackwater. Some of our viewers might be familiar with it. Its leader, Eric Prince, the CEO of Blackwater, is the brother of the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos. He was also implicated in that. So this gentleman, Nicholas Slatton, was sentenced for his role in the killing of 17 Iraqi civilians in Nisour Square in Baghdad, a massacre during the Iraq War that left an indelible stain on the reputations of U.S. service members there in Baghdad and in Iraq. So he has been pardoned. Also, we have this individual by the name of, I believe, last name of Stockman, and we're still going over a lot of these individuals, but those are the most high-profile ones at this moment. Daytona.
Yeah, so Andrew, this isn't the biggest breaking news story that's coming down right now, obviously developing, but yet another one we have going on here is Trump threatening to veto this massive COVID-19 bill that was just passed. Andrew, we were following this all day yesterday. We were on the Senate floor, we were on the House floor. So what does this mean going forward? And I think we have an address from the president that I'll pull up here as well.
Yes, so the president had threatened to veto one part of that. Remember the National Defense Authorization Act. He wanted included in that a repeal of Section 230, which kind of governs how social media companies are protected from liability on their platforms. That was a no-go. But this was all in direct opposition to the fact that included in that bill was a measure to change the names of these Army bases and these Army outposts that are named after Confederate war generals from the Civil War. So that's included in this, and the president has indicated he will veto that. Remember, if that happens, the Senate and the House need to come back, presumably December the 28th, the 29th, based on Senator Mitch McConnell's comments yesterday, and they will have to override that veto. There's enough support to override that veto, so the president he's indicating it'll be likely that he will veto that part of it. Remember, that veto won't sink the entire thing, just that standalone part. I believe we do have a Twitter video from him. This is his first comments right now from the White House in a pre-recorded Twitter video. We hadn't really heard from him in front of the camera on his thoughts about the reliefs and the stimulus bill passed just yesterday, like you said, Daytona. He's really airing his grievances here. He thinks direct payments to Americans should have been higher. He thinks a lot of the funding measures in there for the arts and foreign aid shouldn't be in there, that money should go to Americans. Remember, just because this was the COVID relief package doesn't mean that, the government wasn't funded through next September. Remember, those are two separate things that were in this bill yesterday. And so that's what he's taking umbrage with right now. So we're going to play out this video from him. And remember, Daytona, the president was largely absent from a lot of these discussions and negotiations, basically, tweeting some of his demands and some of the things that he wanted included. But lawmakers basically did this, without really his input or his help. They got a lot of help from the Treasury Department with the secretary there, Stephen Mnuchin. So let's play this video out for our viewers right now. This is the president from the White House.
Throughout the summer, Democrats cruelly blocked COVID relief legislation in an effort to advance their extreme left-wing agenda and influence the election. Then, a few months ago, Congress started negotiations on a new package to get urgently needed help to the American people. It's taken forever. However, the bill they are now planning to send back to my desk is much different than anticipated. It really is a disgrace. For example, among the more than 5,000 pages in this bill, which nobody in Congress has read because of its length and complexity, it's called the COVID Relief Bill, but it has almost nothing to do with COVID. This bill contains $85.5 million for assistance to Cambodia, $134 million to Burma, $1.3 billion for Egypt and the Egyptian military, which will go out and buy almost exclusively Russian military equipment, $25 million for democracy and gender programs in Pakistan, $505 million to Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama, $40 million for the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., which is not even open for business, $1 billion for the Smithsonian, and an additional $154 million for the National Gallery of Art. Likewise, these facilities are essentially not open. $7 million for reef fish management, $25 million to combat Asian carp, $2.5 million to count the number of amberjack fish in the Gulf of Mexico, a provision to promote the breeding of fish in federal hatcheries, $3 million in poultry production technology, $2 million to research the impact of down trees, $566 million for construction projects at the FBI. The bill also allows stimulus for illegal aliens, allowing them to get up to $1,800 each. This is far more than the Americans are given. Despite all of this wasteful spending and much more, the $900 billion package provides hardworking taxpayers with only $600 each in relief payments. And not enough money is given to small businesses, and in particular restaurants, whose owners have suffered so grievously. They were only given a deduction for others to use in business their restaurant for 2 years. This 2-year period must be withdrawn, which will allow the owners to obtain financing and get their restaurants back in condition. Congress can terminate it at a much later date, but 2 years is not acceptable. It's not enough. Congress found plenty of money for foreign countries, lobbyists, and special interests while sending the bare minimum to the American people who need it. It wasn't their fault. It was China's fault, not their fault. I am asking Congress to amend this bill and increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000 or $4,000 for a couple. I'm also asking Congress to immediately get rid of the wasteful and unnecessary items from this legislation and to send me a suitable bill, or else the next administration will have to deliver a COVID relief package, and maybe that administration will be me, and we will get it done. Thank you very much.
Well, that was the latest from the White House right there. I think the biggest statement is kind of coming in the last 10 seconds. Obviously, President Trump saying that he is not in favor of this COVID-19 stimulus bill, even though several members on both sides of Congress were excited to push it forward last night. We saw it all in live time. Andrew.
Yeah, Daytona, you know, the negotiations have been lasting for so long. I mean, 6-7 months, they were in a stalemate. This is, you know, as good as they could come up with that they agreed upon. And like I said before, the president was largely absent from these negotiations, besides issuing on Twitter kind of the things that he wanted in it. Secretary Mnuchin and Chief of Staff Mark Meadows did most of the heavy lifting negotiating with the Senate and the House there. Something that was interesting, though, in that video, just at the very last part, don't know if you caught that, Daytona, but he did give reference to the next administration of all things. That's obviously the Biden administration. So he referenced that, but then he kind of recanted very quickly or said, maybe it's going to be my administration. We'll see. And the Biden transition has indicated that they plan to, bring together some type of other relief bill in the new year, January or February. Remember, Biden has called this one just essentially a down payment. It's not the end of the road. So I thought that was an interesting part of that Twitter video. But, you know, Daytona, just aside from all this, back to the pardons. You know, outgoing presidents, this is customary, this is normal. They issue pardons, they grant clemency as they leave office. Remember, the president has about 28, 29 more days left in office before January 20th, and Biden is sworn in as president. But just to highlight some of the other individuals that are getting pardons, that's the former congressman as well, Steve Stockman, that I was mentioning earlier, of Texas, and he was convicted back in 2018 on charges of fraud and money laundering and was serving a 10-year sentence. Also, he granted full pardons to 2 former Border Patrol agents whose sentences for their roles in the shooting of an alleged drug trafficker had previously been commuted by former President George W. Bush. So, a lot of news right now happening out of the White House on this Tuesday night, just 3 days before Christmas. Daytona.
Everybody be sure to join us tonight on NewsNOW from Fox for our political rundown as we break down all of the biggest things that are happening across the country, including, of course, political news as well. Andrew, I appreciate you being here and breaking it down for us. You are our political expert. Love it.
Thanks, Daytona.
And we're going to send some of you off to a 2-minute commercial break, heading away from this breaking news of President Trump issuing, again, 15 pardons, including 2 former congressmen. Like we said, we'll be breaking it down a little bit later here on News Now.